and I host the Women, Career and Life podcast. Just like you, I've traveled varied paths, stumbled a little, picked myself up, and learned a great deal on my journey. Many of us face similar questions, but we don't always get to have a conversation with our friends or peers. In this podcast, you'll hear real stories that you can connect with on the challenges of navigating career and life. You must be wondering who I am. In my everyday life, I'm a career woman, a mom, and an avid reader. I'm also a road tripper, amateur gardener, and even a fashionista on some days. Join me and my guests as we have an open and honest discussion on career change, trade-offs, and working across boundaries. You get the idea. It's a perspective you simply may not hear anywhere else. Today, I'm excited to have my good friend Usha, who's also a career woman and mom, co-hosting the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Siri. I'm so excited to join today's conversation on returning to work.
We have a guest joining us today from one of the resources we discussed in the last episode. Usha, can you introduce our guest?
With us today is a very special guest, Lauren Hagerty, and she's the Director of Marketing and Communication at Power to Fly. She's here because she heads marketing for an organization that we featured in our Return to Work episode, and they're an organization that would be a great resource for all our listeners. How do I describe Lauren? She is the Director of Marketing, but she's also a fitness enthusiast. She loves knitting. She's made a business out of it. And from what I heard from her before the podcast started, she has so many more hats that she's worn in life. And I'm not going to steal too much of thunder from you, Lauren, but we'll start with getting to know a little more about you. And what I want to start with is, what is it that motivates you to get started every day and who you are as a person?
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with everyone and tell you more about me and Power to Fly. I was born into a family of really strong women. So it was truly only fitting that I found a career that allowed me to continue empowering women and underrepresented talent to do more, both in their lives personally and professionally, and really live their lives to the fullest. So I feel really blessed that, I get to every single day help women achieve these professional dreams that help them achieve, their day-to-day lifestyle goals. So that really gets me up in the morning, and it's so exciting to come to work every day and really build this beautiful company alongside some really incredible people.
You talked about strength and strong women. I'm just curious, are there any experiences that really brought that strength out and defined what strength is to you?
Good question. I think it has a lot to do with perseverance. My mom is also an entrepreneur. She was one of the only women also at a global company. And throughout really my entire childhood, I remember my mom being on conference calls and traveling the world to give trainings. And it was really important for her to show me, my sister, my brother, this is what a woman does. They are a boss in their personal lives and their careers. And I really grew up and moved throughout my life making that be the rule, not the the exception. So I always wanted to work for women who followed that same core value. So women who wanted to lift me up, and I'm a really big proprietor of Lift While You Climb. So, as I'm moving up and through my career, I want to make sure that I'm bringing people alongside with me, just as the women who've done that for me in the past and, continue to do for the future. So, to me, strength is really perseverance. It's not giving up. It's when you're feeling low or when something's going wrong, finding innovative ways to solve problems and really stick it out. That's kind of been the theme of my career and what I try and pass on to my team every single day.
The thought about lift while you climb, that's very lovely, because sometimes we get so caught up in our own issues and challenges. And then once we start actually lifting, we actually take attention away from our challenges. How did you make your way to Power to Fly. And then if you could talk a little bit more about what Power to Fly does and how our listeners can make the most out of it.
Quite an interesting story. Again, talking about lifting while we climb, my manager at my last company had attended an event at Power to Fly and knew that there was a lot going on with the company that I was working with, which I think we'll get to a little bit later. But she was just really impressed with how mission driven this company was, how smooth this event ran, and she saw that they had an opening for a community centric role and really encouraged me to apply. She helped me with my application, my resume, and it was kind of a leap for me. I had never worked for such a mission driven company, such a small company. So I took this leap of faith and, really launched Power to Fly's virtual events program within my first year at Power to Fly. So Power to Fly, holistically, our mission is to fast track economic equality by upskilling and connecting underrepresented talent to roles in highly visible sectors. So, really our bread and butter is connecting people with companies that are committed to creating these diverse and inclusive workforces. So when I joined Power to Fly, I really focused on growing this network of women, of underrepresented talent, finding ways to engage them, to, really show them our value. And, as this grew throughout, the first couple years of my time at Power to Fly, we really were able to establish ourselves as a leader in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space, which kind of brings us to where we are today, where we don't only, provide hiring services or, what once was our in-person events, and now we're totally virtual because of COVID times, but we have training, we have mentorship, we have listening circles, leadership development programs. We have become a 360-degree diversity solution for the clients that we serve and our community who's looking to either pivot their careers, grow in the career that they have, or find something totally new. So, it's just amazing the fact that I've been here for 4 years. I started in just a straight up community role. And now, we're this rapidly growing organization, which in my opinion, couldn't have come at a better time. So Power to Fly is really an incredible organization, not only to be a part of, but to join as a community member. There's just so much opportunity, regardless of where you are in your career.
And I remember when I engaged, this was 2015. So when you had originally started at Power to Fly, it was one of the few organizations that actually brought in that conversation on remote and virtual work. And that actually is what drew me to that website. So I'm going to put on a listener hat and say, I'm somebody who is returning to work and I land on your website. What would be the first few things you would suggest we do? Because there are a lot of resources. What would be a few things that you would suggest our listeners do to make the most of the resources you offer?
Step number one is to create a free profile. So Power to Fly is totally free to use. Everything is free, from our job fairs to our job platform to our daily virtual events. We don't want there to be any barrier to entry for anyone in our community. So to create a free profile, it takes less than 2 minutes. It's very similar to your LinkedIn profile, where you'll put your experience, you'll put your skills, like a lot of that basic information. But I think what makes Power to Fly different is that we also want you to include that personal bit as well, which, as women, it's very hard for us in these resumes, in our cover letters, to include, some of this other, resume meat and potatoes that make us, these great candidates. So we actually have a section on our profile for our story, and we want our community to share their story. So more about what makes them in that section. So create that profile, because whenever you, from there on, sign up for an event, apply to a job, basically interact with Power to Fly holistically. Say we're having a hiring event or our job fairs, for example. When you sign up or you apply to those jobs, these hiring managers immediately get access to that profile and, can contact you based on what you've included there. So, it's quick, it's easy. Maybe it sounds repetitive if you've just kind of created your LinkedIn profile, but better yet, just copy and paste it over. But it's the easiest way for hiring managers and recruiters to network with you, which is what we really pride ourselves on.
That is really fantastic. I think the fact that you said you have a holistic and your story in a way, right? We were just talking about your knitting and the picture behind you, and that brings up the whole other persona that you carry that you don't always take to work with you. So currently during COVID, a lot of women have had to step back or, have been let go, or there have been layoffs at companies. So what do you suggest for them? What should they do differently than what is normally done to return to work? And in other ways also, what are some of the do's and some of the don'ts? I think sometimes the don'ts are just as important as the do's. So can you give us some idea of what that looks like?
My first bit of advice for, career changers, or even people who have been in a role for a really long time and are looking for something new grads, anyone who's like making a big change in their career, take every interview you possibly can and apply to everything. Because in my opinion, job applications and interviews are in many ways like a performance. So the more you do the performance, the better you're going to get at it. So, let's say your dream job was just posted and, you haven't applied to anything, you haven't submitted any applications, and you just go in cold turkey for that matter. You're going to be nervous. There are going to be errors. There are going to be things that you forget or, are just in the heat of the moment, wish that you said X, Y, Z. So the more that you practice your interview skills, the more that you get your resume out there, the more that you ask for feedback on all of these things, the better you're going to be when that dream job, that dream opportunity comes around. So even if they're jobs you don't want at all, they're still going to be great practice for that dream role. It's like my number one tip, regardless, like I said, of where you are in your career. Everyone could use, that confidence going into their dream opportunity. So secondly, especially given COVID times and, what we're considering the great rehiring right now, a lot of businesses are hiring people back in mass. And like you said, especially with all the layoffs with COVID, these were skilled professionals that were let go in many cases. So just applying to jobs via a job board doesn't cut it anymore. So applicants really need to find a closer touch point to the jobs that they really care about. And again, that's what we really pride ourselves on at Power to Fly, because we want to connect our community directly with these companies, with the hiring managers, with recruiters, with people in the roles that they want to do. So my advice is to take advantage of platforms like Power to Fly. And, as Zoom fatigued as we all are, it actually speaks a lot to hiring managers when they can say, oh, wow, Usha just attended this event with Microsoft and she asked this question. And, wow, it seems like she's really interested in what we have got going on here. So we should bring her in for that interview. Any way that we can set ourselves apart is really key given this time. And, for returners, this is great because, your enthusiasm, your excitement really shows through during some of these events. And maybe it isn't necessarily an event, thinking about all of the connections that you have and how to leverage those, or, reading blog posts, just really staying up to date on what's happening in the world of said company. And, the bottom line is, how do you set yourself apart? So don't just apply to jobs via job boards, find that second closer touch point and find a new way into the company or that opportunity.
That it's just something that we don't think about. Like you said, it's not something you'd accept all the interviews. You're waiting for that perfect thing and you're not necessarily prepared for it. It's like everything you're training. It's like training for a marathon. You have to go and do it every day till it becomes sort of a muscle memory. Some sense you're ready for the job, but you're also thinking about it and preparing for it. So one of the things we talked about before is global presence. Can you talk about that some more?
So Power to Fly, we were founded in 2014 based on this mission that we ourselves wanted to be a global team, because in our opinion, the more diverse a team is, not just based on gender, race, ethnicity, culture, we wanted to have all of these different perspectives come into our product and essentially our business. So from day one, Power to Fly has been a totally remote, totally global company. So we span right now, I mean, it's probably changed even the last hour, but we span over 24 different countries for our internal employees. And again, why we do this, one, we want to provide opportunities for underrepresented talent across the globe. So we ourselves practice what we preach, but also this is important because our hiring spans the globe. So we are always hosting events across all continents for companies that are remote, that are in office, that are hybrid. We don't limit ourselves because, diversity isn't limited. We are in a time in the world where companies are looking for leaders like us to help them find really great candidates. And many times, that's not just in their local area. My suggestion, regardless of where you are in the world, is just get involved in the community. And, we have events all the time for different regions, be it a small city in a specific location or for people across the globe. We want to make opportunities and career advancement accessible to everyone. That's what I specifically work on with my marketing team every single day.
The conversation is going on more and more now, right, about diversity and inclusion. It's become sort of a standing point that every company is talking about, but it's been there for a long time. And I think, especially as we talk about COVID, even outside of it, for people returning, it really helps them feel more confident, saying there are people looking for my skill set, and not just your skill set. I think, like you said, your story as well, because there are a lot of things we do that are not just tied to, can I do this job, your organization or your creativity, that might still lend itself that having that global presence. I think that brings another thought process as well. Are you able to interact with clients from different companies, different cultures? That is not always as seamless or as easy as it may seem. As we also return, sometimes we all have to make pivots and transitions. Do you have like a personal story, or have you had to pivot yourself along your journey? Don't forget to subscribe to my Substack newsletter. The links are in the show notes. If you're looking to partner with me for keynote speaking on women leadership, financial independence, or graduate school and beyond, check out my website and reach out to me. Stay tuned in and listen to the rest of the podcast. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, so I love this story because I think a lot of people who are in marketing are kind of in marketing from the beginning, but that's definitely not my story. So I went to school for genetics counselor. It's a very, very competitive program, so I was committed to that. But I got a really interesting opportunity for a startup in my local area. And we actually ended up going through a massive product recall, and it impacted over 5 million of our users. I was the only one at the company who had done any form of formal social media, formal community management. The head of marketing had called me and asked, hey, would you mind kind of running crisis management on our community? I helped really launch our crisis management from this product recall. Lasted a few months, and I ended up building a team from this that ran social media formally afterwards, and then moved myself into a community engagement role thereafter. So I decided to stick with that and not go to grad school and do genetics because I loved it. In this one moment, I saw an opportunity that I thought was interesting. I had no idea what it was going to become. And I said yes. And it turned out being something, 7, 8 years later that I can't imagine waking up every single day and not doing. So for pivoters and changers, and actually even the people that are before that, so in still this like dilemma stage, like, am I happy doing what I'm doing right now? Do I risk it? Like, what does this mean? My advice is just take the chance. If there's something in your gut that's telling you this, I think I could like this, or I could enjoy this, a job's not permanent. You can always go back, you can always change, but if there's something inside you that's telling you to do something, try it, see what happens. It could be that life-changing pivot that makes you the happiest you've ever been in your career. So, looking back, I'm really glad that I took that opportunity. And I hope that helps other people who might be in that dilemma stage.
That's an amazing story. And I hope it for people who are listening, I hope it gives them that confidence, because it is always hard to make that transition. And from what you said, you were dealing with a crisis, right? Even more stressful. It's a pretty steep learning curve within an organization. So I can imagine that must have been a pretty tough situation. You're making it sound so seamless now, but I bet you went through a lot of emotion as it was going. So I'm glad it's been such a successful venture. So did you have like mentors who helped you through this, or people who helped you, sort of keep you going as you were making those decisions, staying the course?
Yeah. So, I mean, it all kind of ties together, everything I've said throughout the conversation today. My manager at this company, as you can imagine, after such a big product recall, the company went through a lot of turmoil after that. So, she really supported me, and knew, what I was passionate about. I became really passionate about community. And, after her attending a Power to Fly event and seeing, how amazing this company is, she knew that was somewhere that I would thrive, and was willing to help and support me through that. Not to mention pulling me up out of, the small position I had at this company, to join the marketing team when I had no formal experience. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for her. And then, the same can be said for Catherine, who's one of the co-founders of Power to Fly. She's really been, a shining light to me and taken a lot of chances on me through my time at Power to Fly. And again, I have so many more mentors and sponsors and people who have been there for me. And I really do believe that is how you grow in your career, especially as women, because a lot of people are going to say no to your face. They're going to put up roadblocks and barriers and tell you you can't do it. But there are people and women out there who, like I said, are going to lift you while they climb. They want you to be successful, and they're going to do everything that they can to help you, because that's not going to hurt them. A rising tide lifts all ships. So really, whether you're in a position of power right now, or you're looking for someone to, support you through what might be seemingly a traumatic piece of your career, reach out, because I think more times than not, there are women who want to help and support you and guide you to a place of success, or at least happiness. So yes, I would not be where I was today if it weren't for my mentors, my sponsors, and I still talk to my old manager to this day.
Mentors is going to actually be our next season after we do this, and it just naturally went in that way, because we don't all of us don't always think of these things when we're in that job. It's almost like you have this narrow vision that sets in, and you're just focusing on the goals within that company. But mentors really open up the perspective, and also listening to stories like this, where you talked about pivoting and what it took, builds that confidence that you could do it. So I think the community and mentors together, like peer mentors and mentors who are your managers, all of that works magic. And as you can tell, we just can't stop talking and asking you questions. You have this wealth of information, but we are getting to a point where we're wrapping up our episode. So I want to get to that question that we ask all our guests. If you were to write a letter to your 21-year-old self, what is the one thing or one quality that you would ask yourself to cultivate to prepare yourself for the next few decades to come?
Boy, that's tough. I struggled with this when I was thinking of what I would say, but it actually ties everything together quite nicely. And I would say, don't take things too seriously, but don't stop working hard. So I mentioned, I went to school for genetics. I worked so hard in college, and I really struggled. It was not easy for me. It was not something that I was good at necessarily. But I wanted it really badly, and I got through it. So, it's funny to look back and think about all the sleepless nights and all the tears that were shed, studying for exams and, studying for grad school and taking the GREs and like everything that just seems so insurmountable as a 21-year-old. It doesn't matter now. What was most important was the fact that I developed this grittiness that, made me never give up on something. So if I wanted it, I was going to achieve it. And that's a trait that I have carried with me to my role today. And, I get into a lot of meetings and people are like, why are you taking this so seriously? Or why do you care so much? Like, this is not a big deal, but it is a big deal. And, when you put that much heart and soul into something, that's what people really admire, especially, in a leadership role or in a company where you're trying to make a difference in the world. People want leaders who aren't going to give up no matter how hard things get, no matter how challenging numbers look or, times are. In the beginning of COVID, I mean, we had 50 events cancel in a matter of a week. And, we were really unsure how was this going to play out for us. But, we gritted through it. And, that is what is important. And I carry with me every single day. How do I wake up every morning, give it my best, be as happy as possible and not get discouraged when things don't necessarily go my way, continue to care, to continue to give my all. And, just take a breath, 21-year-old Lauren, it's going to be okay.
Very true. So Lauren, thank you so much for being here. I think the takeaway from what you said, right? You talked about strong women, perseverance being key. And I think that ties off into that grit and determination and that heart that you sort of said, bring to whatever you're doing. Reach out to whoever it may be a mentor, interviews, whatever you said. Don't hold back. It's such a positive message for everyone to take away and to know that you can meander and still the journey itself is such a joy. We really appreciate you coming here and thank you so much. And for any of our listeners who might want to reach out to you, you look for Lauren Hagerty on Twitter, Instagram, and even look for on LinkedIn. They should be able to connect with you. So.
Yes, thank you both so much for having me. This was so fun. I really enjoyed talking with both of you. Great questions, and you really made my day.
Thank you, Laura. We were refreshed and enthused for the day as well.
Yes, absolutely. Very nice chatting with you. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation on returning to work after a break. Tune in every other Wednesday to catch the next episode. If you think a friend may benefit from this, please share this podcast with them. All the resources we talked about are also available on our website, womencareerandlife.com. I would love to hear from you about your stories and your journey. You can reach me on my blog, Twitter, Instagram, or Gmail at Women, Career and Life. Until next time, this is Sirisha signing off. Remember, there are infinite possibilities to drive change in career and life, which